Thresholds. Further down, where the land leveled and the mountains shrank to stubs, it came to meet them, a clammy mist rolling and crawling around their ankles, then soon around and above their heads. Set free from the snow-melting cities, a mere glimpse away, and tempered enough to rouse sweat upon them once again. Before long, they had cast off the heavy wools of winter, leaving behind all but what they could not part with: weapons, book, shield, and the unyielding bolster of brotherhood. Keanu and Akuma. Yes, here they strode. Brothers from half a world apart, half strangers and half not, poised at the threshold of a land neither of them knew, at the threshold of the weathers and at the threshold of something deeper still, within themselves. White and black tears, fond of walking beside one another for as long as a world of choices would allow it. Climbing and cresting, they came at last to the tilt and fall of a vast ravine. In its funnel, the mist thickened into a glacier of air, and there, hanging in its stony throat, clung the carcass of an ancient snowmill, its doors shut, its wheels stilled. It had been wrought from glittering snow ore, a strange white metal, born of snow pressed hard until it forgot its frailty, fused with the contaminant metalloids entombed in the frozen flakes that fell from the sky, flowers of frost, and then enriched by the long patience of winters upon winters. Such works were no marvel to them by now, for in the Riadland Reichs of Nur they stood as common as cobble. Yet even in ruin this one caught the eye, ghost-like, fixed in silence. From its foot, or rather from the mill itself, a road poured forth into the snow mist, where behind that gauze lay one of the sovereign city-states of the northern colonnades, a city of ice and fire where men melted snow. At the ravine's end, when the shadow of the mill lay behind them, they came upon a narrow lip of even ground, a shelf of soil clinging to the cliff. Here the thaw had worked its first small miracle. In the center, the ground lay close-cropped and sparsely needled with grass, but along the rim, where stones fell away toward the valley, tufts of green thrust upward, stubborn and tall, as though the earth itself were imagining the first step of a stair not yet carved. Stark was the contrast after so many leagues of barren stone and peaks. Green was a friend nearly forgotten, its welcome a gentle hand laid upon them. For in Nur, now farther behind than what lay ahead, the brumal winter had held sway more than half a year, worsened by the Kultanic towers. Vast smog pipes jutted skyward along the tarnished trail, where their foul black breath enraged the skies and drove the seasons to madness. Beneath that perch, of where they stood and stopped, the land fell steeply, and there, unmistakable now, ran the road. A wet strip of tarmac wound from the mill's foot, vanishing into whiskers of mist. Wires sagged overhead like veins strung too tight, and in the ditches, the leafless trees drooped, gaunt and dreaming of warm rise. Beggars cast down in the streets of unequal fortune. Yet among the withered twigs, stronger trunks had dared to wake, their shoots quickened by the unseasonable warm mistings of this kettle of vales and dales. The wind turned and blew a window in the mist, lukewarm to their cheek, and brought with it a sour perfume, iron, rain, and the festering breath of a city swollen by stress and sickness. Far off, a wagon horn called hollow as though a ghost pressed its lips to brass. For a time they spoke not, while the gray weather moved around them. The air was mist and misunderstanding, humming ever faintly with the tides of remote traffic. Street lamps of Stroom power glowed in pale globes, and the tar gave back the smell of rain. And to Akuma, it seemed the Shinjuran plains of Jahiroma lay just before him once more. Those wide, weathered pastures, where rain, as men here knew it, came but seldom, and the grasses and trees upon the rises drank their fill not from storm or sky, but from long rivers of mist that drifted and clung, folding themselves tenderly into every hollow. A mist like this, clean and pure, yet only a likeness, a fleeting semblance, and his mind strayed after it. Keanu sank down behind him, fastening his leg wrappings. At whiles, he gasped as though the hollow hunger gnawing in his belly, as in Akuma's, was, for a breath's span, driven back when the cold air filled his lungs. If only to outwit his hunger, Akuma let the likeness of home linger a while in the halls of his thought, for he would not deem it dream, nor yet forsake it as wholly lost. And in that effort he fancied he breathed the frailest wisp of orchid cherry, a sweetness borne to his nostrils on a wind from worlds away. Too thin, perhaps, to trust, yet present, if only for a single second. Yet even so it withered, waning before his eyes and senses as a footprint wasted in the snow. And their satiety was little more enduring, for they had lingered on but a handful of crumbs since the cloud scraper smote the peaks with a cry of torment, and its wooden bones were riven asunder. When at last even that remembrance fell away, Akuma spoke a question both of them had borne upon their hearts, for keen it struck. "Are you ready to carry on?" "Ready?" Keanu's jaw clenched on the word, as if it were ash he longed to spit out any moment now. "Since when have we been allowed such a thing?" he said, his reply brittle and bare, for whatever Boachian boldness he once carried had bled out of him somewhere along the way. Maybe it was the starving crawl through the Balsterian mountains of Belcrost. Maybe it was something else, something he carried not half so easy to spit out and forget. He sighed, halting himself from all else, save for that far-gone gaze, faltering between defiance and confession. Akuma studied him then, the slack in his shoulders, the way confidence slipped from his brow. He knew Keanu Januk too, and yet in this moment he was not the same, like a cliff split by lightning. It startled him, though he had felt it coming all along. Then, returning, with the weight of one who knows there is no turning aside, no matter the nature of his answer, Keanu said, "No, I shall never be, it seems. Not now. Not ever." His voice was stern still, yet stripped and thawed of its ice. "Nor shall I," Akuma answered, steady though the tremor lay in him as well, for his own silence was heavy with the same dread of going forth. "But perhaps," Akuma inclined his head, "perhaps this trembling, this shiver in our blood is readiness enough. We may never draw any nearer." With that, silence drew out between them until even the wind seemed to wait. Keanu hauled himself upright, and something in him, or rather upon his face, had hardened again. Not the cower of another charade this time, but a choice. He set his hand to the haft of his axe and drew a long breath, at the end of which he said, "If that is true, then let it be so. Let us go forth. For those behind us, let us fall into this fate and wrench the reins from its hand, even though our hands may bleed to hold them. Together. Aye, together, Agamba Wirim, meaning my brother in the spluratical speech. Bavirim hin Iargo, my brother and friend." And so they descended. Gravel broke and pebbles skittered. Downward they went until they came upon the solitary road. The lamps stretching before them like a long procession of pale eyes, and beyond, drowned in the mist of the snow-melt city, the skyline brooded like a script already written, etched dark against the horizon in strange, slender syllables of stone and smoke. Those cities thrived upon a craft both natural and sustainable, thermic hearth power. In its hemispheric halls, the skaldic sang of how high snows were melted, raised again as mist, and harnessed to water and warm the heights. Here, where snowfall came abundant by nature's hand, they had contrived a cycle of weather, marrying frost to fire. Mist became water, water became growth, and so even in such cruel altitude the land was made verdant. The folk of these snow-smelting states cherished their harvest as wealth beyond coin. They built stone-walled thawfields to gather and compress the drifts, for from snow they drew heat, water and life itself. One might think the sight of civilization would bring relief, yet when the world itself was a wound of war, the fear of becoming an ill guest in a city of strangers pressed all the heavier.